G'day guys, welcome back to Bushka on Blitz. Lovely to have you with me here today. We're finally getting around to doing another review. There's been a lot of people asking for reviews of various tanks, whether in the forums or on channel and in message. And this one's featured heavily, even a few people in game asking about this tank in particular. Been very busy otherwise though. There's some videos that have been put out here. The E50 was the last review I think, but we've also had a look at the T34 and the JG 8.8 Snowstorm in terms of actually making some cash, and had a look at a few tips on how not to blow up. Well, blow up in a less violent manner anyway. If you want to have a chat and get involved in the conversation, you can always drop me a line on the Asian Blitz servers, the English-speaking version there, or in game, obviously. I play a lot in the Asian servers, and in channel here on YouTube, either via an email or in the comments section. Now, this tank in particular is quite interesting. It's at the end of a very long line of good tanks. We're going to have a look at that line. We're also going to have a look at the weaponry of the tank, the armour, the mobility, and have a look at a bit of gameplay as well to give you an idea on how I use the tank anyway, and how I believe that the tank can be used to help you further your interests in terms of win rate and owning it up. Now, let's have a quick look at the line for this tank. This tank comes into its own really around about the KV1. The KV1, the KV1S and the IS are all very, very strong tanks, capable of carrying games and really overpowering enemies even above their tier. The KV1 and KV1S in particular are where this line starts to excel. The IS just carries on that tradition, but is actually in with some stiff competition at Tier 7. We've got a review of the Tiger 1 out there and the T29, and they're very good tanks, and the Tiger P. So there's a lot more competition at Tier 7, but again, it shines. The IS3 is a very, very good tank at Tier 8. For my money, the IS8 is an absolute pearler at Tier 9 and often overlooked because it's a little bit craftier than the IS8. It doesn't have quite as good a frontal armour, but it's an excellent tank with good mobility. And then you've got the king of the tree, the IS7, which is, I think it's a bit of a cross between an IS3 and an IS8, to be honest, but it's certainly a unique tank in its own right. And that line is very strong and well worth grinding. If you're going to grind any tank line in the game, I can't think of one that would be more rewarding to grind than this. The German tank line I find excellent as well, but it's definitely not as strong and derpy as this. The Russian tanks in this line are generally stylized by their gun, which tends to be a high dispersion, high derp, as in big alpha damage kind of weapon. And the IS-7, it conforms to a degree to that. It's a lovely, lovely gun for what it does, and it's a kind of an in-between gun. If we have a look at it, its rate of fire, 4.73, is nothing to write home about. But just for context, it falls right in between the E100, which is about 3.69 on its top gun. It has two guns you have to grind, by the way, the E100. And the T110E3, E5 rather, which has a 6.0 rate of fire. And again, it falls right in between in terms of alpha. The T110E5 has 400 alpha as a standard on its armor piercing and heat, and the E100 is well and truly the massive big alpha dog. It's got 640 as its average damage roll. The problem with this tank is, though it has the same dispersion of 0.40 as the E100, it suffers tremendously with a 3.4 second aiming time. Now, while you can certainly mitigate that 3.4 second aiming time, which is an enormously big aiming time, if we compare that with the T110E5, you'll see what I mean. The gun handling on the T110E5 is as good as it gets at Tier 10. It's excellent. You'll see the aiming time is 2 seconds for the T110E5, and that dispersion is 0.35. What I find with aim time, when it gets around 3 seconds or over 3 seconds, it can really adversely affect your accuracy because you often don't have 3 seconds to wait, let alone 3.5, for your reticle to actually get to a small enough level that you can accurately hit the target. So what a lot of people will do, and they'll wait till it's well on the way down, and when it's small enough, they feel that it's going to be accurate enough, they'll fire. When you combine that .40 with a reticle that's not fully dilated, you end up with rounds that tend to, not inexplicably because we know it's an inaccurate gun, but rounds that tend to veer off course in a most alarming manner. And you'll see during the gameplay that that's the big negative for me on this tank is the accuracy of the weapon. The fact that its rate of fire isn't superb, it's not a big deal. Like the damage per minute of these tanks is all going to be there or thereabouts, 2200 to about 2400 is where you're going to be for the E100, T110E5, IS7. They're all going to be there or thereabouts. Now, what we do have though is a tank that can really take a lot of punishment. We're going to have a look at Armour Inspector in just a second, but the playstyle of this tank is very much defined by the fact that if you can cover up your lower glacis, there's not a lot of tanks in the game that can reliably pen the top part of this tank, especially not that very, very rounded, very well armoured turret. And it's all about effective armour. If you look at the sloping on that armour, you'll see just how severe it is. And if you look at this tank itself, there are no really flat surfaces around this place. And we're going to have a look at this secret little side bit here. That's spaced armour and tracks and sloped armour beneath spaced armour and all like folded edges within folded edges. In terms of profile, the tank is outstanding. It's actually a little bit lower to the ground than most, and although it looks quite large and intimidating, it weighs in, you'll see here, the tank weighs in at 68.19 tonnes. That does seem like a hell of a big tank. You compare it to something like this monster, which weighs in at 130 tonnes, just about, and you'll see here the E5 weighs in at 53.76. So again, right in between there. It's certainly not the kind of tank that's going to go ram crazy, but it can certainly bully mediums and to a lesser extent lower tier heavies quite comfortably. But it's not a huge tank for a tank that's so tough. Just quickly and briefly, the E5 I find to be a very reliable, manoeuvrable tank with a very, very good gun and gun handling characteristics. The E100 is a very big, unwieldy tank that was actually quite difficult for me to learn to drive properly, and you have to spend a lot of time watching your angles, both with the body of the tank and the turret of the tank, because it's so enormous. And this tank I took to like a duck takes to water. I don't know why, but I found it suited an aggressive play style. It's very much a shock tank where you want to drive it to a strong point and hold that strong point. But anyway, let's have a look at the armour values and have a little chat about that. So here we go. This is the IS7 as seen without any armour modelling at all. Let's have a look at it in terms of armour penetration. Now this is the gun of the T110E5, which is actually quite a solid pen. It's a 258 pen with its AP, the 120mm M58 gun. Now you can see all the red bits there are parts where it's not going to pen, or the chance of penning is negligible. The lower glacis, as always, is horrific, and that's nearly always going to be the case with these heavy tanks and tank destroyers. If you can get a shot at the lower glacis, it's good night nurse. What you will always see on this tank is it looks like it's an easy shot, but if you can be moving forward and backwards on this tank like that, changing the angle of the lower and upper glacis, you'll often confuse. It's almost like on the German tanks, you want to move from side to side, and you want to change the angle of the lower glacis like that, where it goes from green to red, green to red, green to red, and they can't shoot the tracks at the side. That won't work on the Russian tank, because you can see a Pike Nose. If you turn it to one side, you flatten the armour, and you actually make it incredibly easy for people to pen. If you go forward and back and change this angle like that, you will flatten the armour out on top and then flatten the armour out underneath. And you can, in desperation, that's almost like a reverse juke, where you juke from side to side. You're juking forward and backwards here, trying to change those angles. That's if you have to. The best part is just to find a hill that covers that and then fire over it without giving anyone a look at your armour, your weak side. Now that 150 millimetres of armour at the front is sloped like a bugger, and you can see here the effective armour of that 150 millimetres when seen from absolutely dead on goes all the way up to 330 at the top there as the armour gets steeper. The angle is right around 60 degrees. Now 75 degrees in this game is an auto bounce zone. So if you have anything around that 60 to 70 degree mark, it's a very, very, very tough pen. Something else to note about this tank before we go any further. Let's have a look at damaged to modules. Now you can see there, you'll cop this a lot in this tank. That lower glacis, behind that lower glacis, if they pen it at the right angle, right in the middle is the driver. So that module gets damaged an awful lot. The IS-7 is also something that will get ammo racked. Now that's your ammo racks just there, okay? You can see them, that crossed blue and green at the bottom. That hiding right behind there and there, those two white marks, there's shells going in, you can see. That's where you get ammo racked. And that's why you don't want to give people that side shot, because if they hit you there, I've ammo racked more IS-7s than any other tier 10 tank. If you can aim just below that light from that angle, or just below the light on the front and pen, you will have a very good shot at actually inflicting module damage. What I'd like to show you now is the collision model, which will show you the little secret side parts of this tank. Now you can see these tracks. A lot of people that you face will be in E100s, Mouses, E100s and T62As in particular. They'll fire heat, high explosive anti-tank. T110E5s will too. There's a lot of people that fire heat. Heat struggles. Anything with a HE in it. HESH, high explosive squash head, HE, high explosive or high explosive anti-tank, which is heat. It doesn't like spaced armour and it doesn't like tracks. If heat hits a module, it will blow up the module, but it won't actually do any damage apart from splash damage. And if you have heat hitting a track or something like that, it'll eat it. But it also doesn't like spaced armour, and there's a strip of spaced armour between the track and the superstructure of this tank. Now another reason why you get a lot of bounces on this tank is if you take away the spaced armour and the external module, you can see that side along the side beneath the flanks of the tank, it's actually angled. It's sloped down and quite severely sloped too. So although it's only 100 millimeters of armour and then spaced armour on top of it and possibly also hitting track, you have something that's very effective at stopping heat or really limiting the effectiveness of heat. So you should be warned, if you're firing into the side of these tanks, don't use heat. If you're going to fire into them, there is a section, obviously that section along there where there's only 150 millimeters of armour, it's still sloped. There's no real flat surfaces on this tank. But yeah, it's certainly not an easy thing to do. And you want to be very cautious when you're doing that. I can't tell you the amount of times in the heat of battle I've flung a bit of heat into the side of an IS-7 and got no joy for it whatsoever. Likewise, even on the back, I've bounced stuff off the back of this tank that's just obscene. It really is quite silly. So the modules, something to watch out for, getting ammo racked on the front. You want to keep that pike nose facing the enemy at all times if at all possible. You want to basically hide that lower glacis, and if you only have to have that gun above and they can see your turret, that's excellent, because the turret is like Yul Brynner's crown, mate. It is rounded and tough to penetrate. Very much a worthy bit of armour and engineering there from the Soviets. Low profile, so you can slip along between the hills and the valleys. Yeah, great armour. Now we've talked about the actual armour profile. Let's have a look at the manoeuvrability of the tank. And this plays somewhat into the style of the tank and the way I like to drive it. It's got a speed limit of 50 kilometres an hour. only 20 degrees of traverse and 18 degrees of turret traverse. So it's cumbersome in terms of turning and traversing and staying and tracking mediums as they try and circle it, things like that. But if you can get it in a straight line on a map like Mines or running up the hill on Wintermalinovka, as you'll see, we have a couple of Wintermalinovkas in the gameplay, you can achieve some very key tactical victories where you get to strong points first and you stop the enemy from advancing over the top of a hill or into good cover, and you give your team time to flank or take up positions where they can be more effective. And you've got to remember in this game, you're going to be playing with random publics a lot. You can whinge and whine as much as you like, but it's not going to make them any better. The thing you can do, though, is be a target, soak up damage, spot things for them if it's necessary, do all the kind of things that make your team more efficient, because at the end of the day, even the best players out there don't win every game, and the games they lose are quite often because the other team plays more as a team. And I find that I'm not that good a player where I can actually just go off and rip people apart. I have to make a living by being a little bit smarter than most and playing a little bit closer to my strengths. And you can do that in this tank. And if you utilise its speed, its straight line speed, and its really trollish front armour, then you can do a lot of good. So we've had a look at the gun. We've had a look at the armour of the tank. We've had a look at the manoeuvrability. It's not going to knock your socks off. It can do 50 Ks. Let's have a look at that playing into the equipment. In your consumables, I carry a repair kit and a multi-purpose restoration pack on every tank. The third is usually an option between engine power boost and adrenaline. And with this tank, I go with engine power boost, because if I can get it up to top speed quickly using engine power boost, I can get to strong points first, as quick as mediums at times. And that's something to move that much firepower and force across the battlefield as quickly as that. It's something that can't be underestimated. In terms of equipment, you don't have a lot of options here. You have to have a rammer because your rate of fire is quite slow. You've got to have vents because you've got to improve both your reload speed and your aim time, and you've got to have an enhanced gun laying drive because you have to get that aim speed down. At 3.4 seconds, 0.34 off it will take you down to about 3 seconds flat. With vents, you're hopefully around about 3 seconds and 100% crew, which is a hell of a lot better than 3.5. I don't feel there's any negotiation in any of those. You've got to absolutely have those three things as far as I'm concerned, and that's expensive, but that's how it is. So yeah, the IS-7, that's the garage, that's the line. Let's go and have a look at the gameplay. Yeah, you can see here Wintermalinovka, we've burned through our engine boost and we're trying to get up to the top of the windmill as quickly as possible, really taking advantage of that flatline speed that this tank has. Now this first shot here is actually very, very accurate for this gun. You can see that shouldn't have gone, but it does. It misses plenty, you'll see in the gameplay. This is a great area here. You can go backwards and forwards. If you've had a look at the tips and tricks how not to blow up, you'll see I do this in an E75. This shot too is ridiculous for this gun. That's 2 hits from 2 hammers. I've looked at the opposition team. They don't have a lot of firepower in terms of tank destroyers. So what we're trying to do here is halt them and soak up damage. You can keep fairly well hull down from this position. You can see that E100's firing heat because he just can't pen. He doesn't have the penetration on his tier 10 gun to actually get through the Pike Nose frontally. That's a very brave soul, just going to sit there in front of an E100 and IS-7, and then he gets blocked. Now they're coming up on our left, so we're going to have to face forward and move. You can see how hard it is to aim with this gun. The aiming time of 3.4 seconds. Now it's rough and tough. We've taken some good hits. Watch where this goes. This is crazy. This lands behind him. Look at it. It's gone underneath him and landed behind his tank. That's just absolute madness. You can see we've absorbed the enemy team. We've pushed out. We've stopped that E100 and that E75 from actually getting up to the windmill because they had to think twice once we put a round into the IS7 and into the E100. And for the most part, that's what you want to do with this tank. You want to utilise that straight line speed, pump it out there, get it to a position of strength, and hold the strong point till the rest of the team catches up, and then leapfrog and advance from there. And although we obviously don't set any world records in terms of damage here, the ability of this tank to get out and do that is what really wins the game for this team. Now, everyone else has to play to a reasonable standard, and we do a fair amount of damage, but it's more about tactics than it is about skills. And a lot of this game is just about making the right decisions. You can see in terms of traverse, it's not crash hot. It's pretty straight, and I've obviously speeded this up because we've got a lot of gameplay to get through, and I've got a lot of different things that I want to talk about with this tank because it is an intriguing tank. You can see we're next to an E75 there, and once we start that engine working, we leave him for dead. We're heading up here. There's an E50 M, T54, and an IS3 left. Now, I know from experience that this is not an easy tank to pen from the front with an E50. And that's why you always want to get face hug enemy tanks. And he's trying to hit other people because they're easier targets. But you can face hug very successfully in this tank. And here we go. Line up this little T54, ammo rack him. You want to get as close to the enemy as possible because it hides their lower glacis. If you're nose to nose, it's very unlikely that they can get the right kind of angle to actually put a shell into the front of your tank. And you can see here, he's got absolutely nothing to shoot at. He's only a tier 8, so it's no surprise. And again, a very effective game, utilising the strengths of that tank, always keeping your armour directly facing the enemy, just a shade under 5,000 damage. Now this is not a full game, this is just about side scraping. You can side scrape very successfully in this tank. You can see me here just moving backwards and forwards, baiting shots. That's another shot. The reticle wasn't even fully down, and that went on. The little turret of the T110E5 facing us. Now, there's also an IS8 that's going to pop out here. You've got to be patient with this tank. You can't side scrape at a severe angle like you can at an E100 or a Mouse or some of the other tanks in the German line like an E75. What you can do though is be patient. Take your time, wait for opportunities, and there's no harm in actually just going backwards and forwards and turning this turret slightly like that. You can see we're still soaking up damage, we're still hitting people on our flanks, we're still holding a line in a position, and we're basically holding the flank for our team here, and that's all we're doing. And there's a lot of big heavy tanks ahead of us. There's a T110E5, there's an IS8 and an E75. We take one in just the back, and then we put one into the IS8. And we take another from the IS8, but all the time they're hitting that spaced armour and the tracks on the side. They're just basically not able to pen through there. It's a really tough, sneaky little part of the tank. This T110E5 is going to push forward, and you can see on my right, I think I've got Pimp Daddy on the right, or is it Dix? No, I think it's Pimp Daddy. Pimp Daddy's there. We're going to put another one in the IS8. We're going to wait until we bait a shot from him, and then we're going to go forward and help the rest of our team. Now, Ape has the T110E5. He's done a good job, but he's pushed forward, and this IS8 is just worried about getting hit now, so he's trying to hide. We're not worried about him. We move forward and finish off Aper. Always trying to keep your tank as straight as possible with the enemy. It's the most important thing to do. Now here we are on Black Goldville. We've gone top. Again, you can see me, I've blown the engine boost. This is called wasting your time. This is where I decide I'm going to take 3 seconds, take a bad shot, and then realise I'm being an idiot and I'm in an IS7 and move forward. However, the T110E5 across from us hasn't learnt from that lesson, and he's still facing over trying to snipe, and he's given us a lovely, lovely view of our turret. Now the top of this hill is very nice in terms that it will quite often hide your lower glacis if they're at a bad angle, like the bottom of the hill there. They're still looking to snipe that far flank and giving me shots on their turret. And you're always just looking to utilise that Pike Nose. Look at that. Oh, that is terrible. That's this .40 dispersion and 3.4 second aim time, that shot. And you'll see more of them as we progress. Now what we want to do is come up here and we're going to side scrape. Look, this is a really effective tank to side scrape with. You want to get up dead straight against the wall and you've got to be a little more patient. You can see that's an E100. We're going to bounce his shot on the side again, return the fire. And it's a really, really effective tank for that. Now I don't know what the rest of our team was doing here, because you can see on the mini-map there's me, 2 guys in the middle, and I'm basically up here versus 3 heavies. But they fell to bits. Now, if, much like on the last map, if they're not going to come to the party and move forward on you, look for targets of opportunity and just take your time. There's the E100 firing heat again, but he doesn't have any kind of angle, and we're just basically showing him our gun, making him back off. We don't have a shot ready to go. That's all posturing on our part. And I can see that flank down here, there is already 1 tank down. The STI's moved forward for reasons that are only known to him and decided that he's going to stand in the middle of the map. The E100's coming up. Now this is where you move, because you don't want to be stuck frontally with any kind of tank. Like an E100, he's tall enough, he can watch this shot. Honestly, this tank, oh my god. It'll give you nightmares some days. It's a brilliant tank and I love it to bits, but that, if I could change one thing on it, it would be that .40 dispersion. And you can see how long it takes the turret to traverse around here to this E5. There we go. So at the moment, it's 2 tanks down each, and the IS-7's doing very well. It's now come to my realisation, though, that we're a tank down and the guys behind us are sniping up without anyone putting pressure on them. So they're getting free shots. We bounced 1 on the side. You can see what we're going to do here is go for cover, get my nose facing down the hill at the guys who are sniping up. Always trying to find a seam in the defence. So now I can comfortably cover both sides. I've got a rock between me and him. And the T-54 moves up. The T-54 loses his rag with me in this game. I cut some of it out because he was just being an idiot. But he starts calling me a noob and all kinds of naughty things. So we've got a lot more cover than we had previously, and we've got a shot coming up on the E100. So you can see it's manoeuvrable enough to put itself in decent positions. Now this is later on. The rest of the team's folded like a bad chair, and we're about to face an M103. And this is what I'm talking about with face hugging. Here we go. Noob IS-7. This guy wouldn't shut up. I think his win rate was absolutely horrific as well. There's a weak spot in the cheek of the M103 there. We're going to lose this. We can't leave this guy alone. We don't have enough hit points to do anything but face hug. And that's what we're doing. We're keeping that angle changing backwards and forwards, not letting him have a clear shot at our lower glacis. And as long as we're nose to nose, he's going to struggle tremendously to hit us. We run out of time, but there you go. You can side scrape, you can face hug. It's not accurate. I think those 3 things really bear reminding with this tank. And you'll see there we did about 4k damage. Now here we go, Wintermalinovka again. Now I love this game. And the reason is that it's what I love the most about this tank. You can see we've pushed well ahead of the pack, and we've got up to this important strong point ahead of the rest of the team. Now there's an FV4202, an STI, an E100, an E75 and an M103, some big heavies and some accurate guns facing us. And we're doing our level best to keep our Pike Nose pointing at the guy that's going to hit us. And it illustrates 2 things, that this is an incredibly tough little tank, and also that it's wildly inaccurate. You can see here, nothing. We're using our APCR. We're just trying to put a little bit of fear into these guys. Now I think at the end we get a steel wall for this. We get about 26, 27 hits. A lot of these damage hits you'll see are the E100 and the like firing HE. I think the FV4202 is firing Hesh at me, and just trying to actually put some damage into us. And all they can really see is my upper glacis and my turret. And it stops the game. It absolutely stops them from doing anything at all. They can't afford to turn sideways to me. They can't afford to go anywhere. And we've locked their team up. And this is what this tank does very well. It's a strategic tank. It can get there at 50 kilometers an hour using an engine boost. It can hold that strong point. And now we're starting to get into them, starting to poke a bit of damage out there. And the whole time that we're lighting these guys up and they're getting hit from the flank, you'll see we've got some tanks over there doing some damage from both sides. The whole time that's happening, we're also getting contributions. Every time someone does damage to one of these guys that we're lighting up or tracking, anything along those lines, we get 50% of that credited to us in assisted damage. I believe so anyway. It's always a bit of a grey area. You can see that E100, I know he's on a long time reload. I can hit him and get back. It's the first and only time I move over because I know a really good damage roll will ruin him. We drop him again straight away and finish him. And it's a wonderful thing about this tank. It's almost like we've said to the other guys, give us your best shot, throw all your gold ammo at me, see how far you go, and then we just start taking little slices out of them. You can see now we're starting to do damage, we're starting to bring them in, and it all just basically eventually cascades. They can't hold the spot forever, it's untenable. And we rampage on down. And this is one of the most fun games I've played in ages. I love steel wall kind of games where you soak up the damage, and like 27 hits is a lot of hits. And what that means is that if you can be soaking up nearly 30 rounds worth of hits from 4 or 5 different tanks, you're occupying their time and thought process. They're going to be not shooting at your teammates, and they're also going to be giving your teammates the opportunity to fire at them. And that's a really good thing. And whether you do 1,000 damage or 3k damage, it's a really key ingredient to winning in any tank, but particularly in a tank like this. And then you go in and you clean up the mess. What a great little tank. Still bouncing. Still bashing. So let's have a look now at the stats quickly. I think, is it 26 or 27? 27 hits. We've got a steel wall. Oh, I forgot we've got spotters as well. Great scout tank, this one. So really soaking up the damage there from the enemy team and giving our team a chance to really get stuck in. Now, next map is Rockfield. Rockfield. Good God. Now this is what I'm talking about. Finding hull down positions. It's almost like you want to be thinking of you're driving a T29, except the front of your tank is actually exceptionally strong and you don't have that kind of crazy gun depression. Now, this is a fantastic spot. I can't see anyone yet, but you can see there's little geysers of dirt popping up ahead of me. There's a lot of tanks out there who want to have a crack at me, but all they can see is, much like the last guys put on Wintermalinovka, is that very rounded turret. Now this mouse actually has an interesting game. At first I thought he didn't know what he was doing, but he moves up and he puts a lot of pressure on because no one else in the team can really pen him from that angle. We get 2 into him, but he still manages it to make it up to that bunker, which is, on this map, that is the key strategic point of the map, I think. If you can hold that bunker area there, it's very tough. Now look at that. Honestly, that shot, that's a kind of shot that will make you scream in this tank. It is just crazy how often you will aim dead set in the middle of a tank, should go through, and it'll just droop and hit the ground behind it or something, as you've seen a couple of times. None of the shots have been crazy off the mark shots. But, I mean, that one didn't even hit. That did not even hit that JP. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. So this mouse pushes up. Very hard to pen. And we're still just moving backwards and forwards. Always move backwards and forwards on this tank. As mentioned in the Armour Inspector, you're changing the angle on that front lower glacis, and you're also making it very difficult with this low profile up against that hill. They're getting visuals of this tank. You can see it's still hitting little bits of dirt flying up there. You get one just into the soft cheeks of the mouse. I know he's weak there, even though I can't see his actual tank itself. There's that M103. Real pain in the arse, that tank. Such a good, strong, strategic position, that. And they're now starting to return fire, and things are going to get very interesting. We're down a tank here. And luckily, Dick Snoof has been doing good work down below us. I'm holding that side. Look at that. I don't know how that missed again. It's bloody terrifying. So we want to go and hit that mouse. This position is just about untenable now. That pattern's moved up. Silly him. If that mouse had been a little more aggressive here and come out and angled off that wall a little bit harder, I think we could have been in trouble. As it was still a very, very near thing. And I'm watching Dix, he's down below, he's taking his time with those guys. We drop the hammer here, use our engine boost. We take one for our troubles, and this is a really high risk move if he can get around before he... But we're a little bit more manoeuvrable than a mouse. So we're going to park up right next to him. Don't waste your shot on something you don't think you're going to get. Give itself a nice easy hit. And there we go. And there's that pattern coming for me. Now if he had charged, he would have been alright. But instead he tried to take the safe way out. It turned out to be not so safe at all. I'm already turning my tank. I know exactly where he's going. So even though we're down in the dumps, Dix is at the back, he's handling business. We've got the pattern. We've got it no shorter order. If that M103 had come up, we would have been in trouble as well. But you can see, such a strong tank. It's such a little nugget. And Dix has been holding the line down there beautifully. And in what was obviously a very tense game, we polished off the last one. Low battery, everything. Funny. Oh, there you go. Obviously tense. You can hear me. I was recording at the time. So, what else can you say? Great tank. Very tough. Can deal out the damage when necessary. Staying power, speed. It's got its weak spots, sure, but every heavy should. You don't want any one tank to dominate a game. And I believe that in the IS-7, you've got a tank that can certainly hold its own against any other Tier 10 tank in the game. So I highly recommend it. That's my review. I know it's been long-winded. I'm sorry for that. I'll try and cut them down to under 30 minutes in the near future. But I can't help it. Once I get talking, I never shut up. So I'm Bushka on Blitz. Thanks very much for hanging about. I hope you enjoyed the review and it was of some benefit to you in terms of increasing the old knowledge base. If you've got any more suggestions or comments, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Drop me a line and I'm happy to take suggestions on reviews as we move forward. Have a great day and see you out in the battlefield.